Alrighty.
Thank you.
So once again, thank you for coming out. I do appreciate it. And I imagine you have some questions. And I imagine we'll have some more people here once Lost gets out. Oh, people want to eat. All right. Well, I see no reason to wait for the seats to fill up. Let's get started. If you have a question, raise your hand. Really? You came to a Q&A and no one has a question? Not one. All right, Eric Quinones, what is your question? The current plan for the new Chronicle, all right, well, since this is only single directional, the question was, how soon will you be able to make characters for the new Chronicle? Currently, the plan is we're going to decide on which venues are globally supported in discussion with myself and the affiliate national storytellers. The plan we're working with, given that the reset is going to be May 2013, or thereabouts, is that you'll be able to make a character, put it on the database, submit it for approval, and begin historical planning for the upcoming Chronicle 6 months out, which would be about December. That is the plan. Obviously, we want to give you as much time as possible so you can go through the approvals process, build your backstories, establish the continuity locally, get your historical game on, and have fun with it. If that plan changes, we will let you know. Yes, question. All right. Question is the addendum for the new Chronicle going to be released at that 6-month period? Will it be released prior to that, or will it be released after? Ideally, so that you know what to apply for and what level you need to apply to, we would want the addendum to come out at that same time. Now, as we all know, the addendum is subject to change. It may be that the addendum we launch in order to let you begin developing those characters, those ties, those approvals, will change during that 6-month period. While this isn't a perfect scenario, it's sometimes unavoidable. It also allows us to sidestep any problems with grandfathering things which were not intended, because technically the Chronicle will have yet to launch. But my hope is 6 months out, when you're allowed to submit your characters, go for approvals, there is an addendum for your venue live that you may use as your guidance. Now, to add a little bit beyond what the question was asked, that also includes settings documents, genre packets, for the character type you wish to portray, so that when you're building your character, you can build it in line with what the intentions are for the Chronicle, for the story. In New World, where it's much more of a sandbox approach and the setting is less well defined, we want to give you at least the skeleton of that setting. So when you build your characters, make your ties, and begin portraying in a historical context these PCs, you're able to do so under that framework, under that structure, that agreed upon shared history of that continuity. Right now we have something called Project Quantum.
That's a kick-ass name. Project
Quantum is indeed a kick-ass name. And a great deal of credit goes to John Scott. If you don't know John Scott, he's the current AMST Geist. He was a very powerful spearheading force in setting up Project Quantum. Currently right now, Kevin Millard, the AMST Chief of Staff, is the one with oversight directly on Project Quantum. What Project Quantum is building the world. We're going to start with, in phase 1, creating reality. We're going to transcribe the historical record as best we can and as accurately as we can to create a wiki-based framework for the chronicles, for the individual stories to build upon. Then, once that is complete, it will be turned over to the new Chronicle development team for both the old and new worlds. They will be able to add onto that template the aspects important to their continuity, define which historical events they wish to tie in with which communities. Were the vampires in Belgium doing X? Were the Forsaken or the Guru in Berlin doing Y? The original template, the historical template, we will save so that when we launch our next Chronicle, we have that as a good base to build from. A familiar technology, a familiar format that we can use in order to establish the rich stories that we want to play in. This will also interface with the dark places on the map at both the global and national levels, and be a tool set that your national storyteller can use to enrich the dark places of your regional and domain level games. We also want to provide a way for you to tie your characters into the timeline, much like your characters link to each other on the wiki, so that when someone wants to know what happened in Madagascar in 1976 that no one will talk about, they can see the characters that were involved. If you wish to be the Archbishop of Prague or an ambassador to Zimbabwe, you can go on the wiki, find the relevant time period of the relevant area, and see who else is involved in that same time. This will help you build ties. This will help deepen your immersion into the world. Question. The question is, are there events which have happened in this Chronicle or in past Chronicles that we will carry forward to impact the new Chronicle, either in a development sense or in a historical sense? And that's a good question. I don't know. Partly because a lot of it will be dependent on the individuals charged with development of those worlds, of those continuities. If the Requiem developer wants to take something from this Chronicle's history, say the establishment of the trust or foundation, perhaps the Emperor of the Night, or the death of what was Jamie's character? Javad. And use those as historical events to create that kind of tie, I'm all in favor of it. If they want to take things that we've seen either succeed admirably or fail, like the New World event that happened at XX, and use those, that's certainly something I'm definitely open for. The important thing is, one, I wish to empower the national storytellers of all the affiliates to build their chronicle in keeping with their culture and their objectives, while at the same time maintaining global continuity and creating a rich setting in the venues that require it, or a rich story in the venues with ample setting that will engage the player base and provide you the framework to build your own stories upon. Questions? Question. You mean for Project Quantum? Okay. The question is, for Project Quantum, the teams put together to build these historical templates. Are they something appointed? Are they elected? The answer to that is that, by and large, they've been selected. We all know our friend who's the history buff, who has nigh encyclopedic knowledge of this place in the world at this time. And we know those in the club going for their doctorates, those who love academia, who have those solid knowledge bases. We know who has phenomenal organizational skills. And through an outreach program, started by, like I said, John Scott, but slowly spreading out, we've recruited some very able people. Now, some of you may be like, well, I wanted to be part of that. Why can't I be? And the thing is, you still can. You would want to contact the MST Chief of Staff, Kevin Millard, mention Project Quantum and your desire to contribute. It's very open development. There's nothing saying you can't contribute. In fact, we would love for more people to be contributing. This is a huge project. We're building the world. Not just a part of it, not just the parts we play in. We're not leaving the dark places of the map dark. We're fleshing them out. We're filling them with either the canon NPCs who are known to be there, or creating our own NPCs to use in our own canon in shaping the Chronicle, which ties into something else.
Happy to provide a segue.
Everyone who was at, I believe it was ICC, I think it was the last ICC we had, there was an NPC by the name of Seneca. He was admired in the Invictus and admired in the Carthians, and created some very interesting and dramatic role play. But the one place I think we could have done better is in establishing that NPC as early as possible. So when he finally does show up, the players know. They've read his wiki, they've seen his interactions in the history of their continuity, And it's not a surprise when he shows up. When the Unholy walks into ICC or GM or even a regional convention Requiem game or your featured game of the month, when the Unholy walks in, the vast majority of the players know who the Unholy is and react with that knowledge. When your storyteller introduces a brand new NPC, you don't have that. And I think when we talk about global NPCs, when we talk about the canon NPCs, we want to strive to develop that as best we can. And part of that means establishing them as soon as possible. And Project Quantum gives us a vehicle to do that. Because we can put them in these dark places to help enriching. I'm making up a word now, it's called enriching. We are enriching. We're enriching the fabric of our stories by doing so. And it provides PCs a method to tie in to those NPCs, build ties with them, build histories. Even more importantly, it might allow us to disguise who a PC is as opposed to an NPC. Because the name on the wiki will be the same. Whether it's a PC or NPC, you might not necessarily know when you establish those ties. We might even be slightly underhanded and recruit players to portray NPCs who are willing to take strong ST direction and sacrifice the ability to portray their own character in order to add a dynamic element to these canon NPCs. And if that's something you're interested in, by all means, when the development kicks up, we're going to be asking. And this gives you a chance, if you're a newer member, this gives you a chance to interact with the global game in a way that oftentimes seems impossible. If you're an experienced member and you're just can't think of a good concept, let us give you one to run with. Plus, it encourages a mindset that I'm a big fan of, and that is, it doesn't matter if you are a storyteller or a coordinator, a general member, new to the club, been in since before White Wolf took over. We all have the same ability to impact the enjoyment of others. The scope will change. Obviously, I can ruin a lot. And I can make a lot awesome because my scope is grand. Ryan, your regional storyteller, he can strongly impact the region.
The reset starts now.
Not that strongly. And he can also have that strong impact spread to other regions. And that can be an excellent and dynamic thing. But players have that same power. And I really want you to realize how much power that gives you. If you are telling an awesome story that is involving other people, that's motivating them, inspiring them, exciting them, scaring them, then they take that same energy and pass it on to the people they interact with, who pass it on even further. How many of us come back from a con energized for the game? Why? Because at a convention, we see the highest levels of play that our club is capable of. And we take that energy back to our local games, and our local games explode because of it. And that explosion of energy is what builds those stories that 3 years later, while in the drinking venue, you're telling about, I was there when, or remember that time when. And that's the point. It's not to win, it's not to get the cool shiny item, it's not to dress up and act petty, although that can be great fun. But it's to tell the kind of stories that years later are still being talked about. And that's not something you have to be a storyteller to do. In fact, I would argue that players are better vehicles for those kinds of stories because they can put the kind of personal investment that, quite frankly, your storyteller might not have time for. But I've segued way off the original question and more hands are raised. So, question. The question is, what is the plan for winding down this Chronicle? Because there is much faith at a big, awesome ending. We've ended the world before. Some of the newer camis might not remember, but there was this thing called the Year of Fire when pretty much it's the last time a hard and global reset occurred and they ended the world. And that wasn't a bad idea. Sometimes ending the world is the right move. But we've done that. We've been there. We have those stories. And let's go and let's try something new. The plan is, one of the things that I emphasized when hiring on the MSTs is it's not your job to create a plot that the players can jump into to watch the world end. It's your job to create the tools, to create the environment necessary to give the players a chance to impact the world. The Chronicle ends not by exploding, but by giving the players the opportunity to change the paradigm. So that at the end of the Chronicle, you look back at how we started and say, we are not in the same world. For Changeling the Lost, that might be redefining the nature of how the Changelings and True Fae interact, redefining the very nature of the hedge itself. For Forsaken, that might involve evolving past what the source presents to us as the relationship between the Uratha and spirits. In Requiem, that might mean challenging what the definition of kindred is. Beyond covenant, beyond coterie, beyond city politic and clan, challenging what it means to be a vampire. In Geist, challenging the very nature of death. What death means. How death exists in our world. For Masquerade, you've already seen significant shifts in the paradigm. And we've only just begun. We're not burning the world down. We're going to build it in a different direction. But you don't have to do it. Here's the beauty. You don't have to do it. Your character doesn't have to be involved. Your domain doesn't have to be involved. Your region can opt out. And that is not a bad response. We've all seen changes happen in the real world that certain communities choose not to adopt. It's a very human reaction, very personal reaction to things spiraling outside of your control. We're not there to force you into the plot bus. We are there to provide you the tools so that your character can change the world. Or fight those who want to change the world. Maybe you like the status quo and you want to resist change. We provide you the tools for that as well. Perhaps you want to explore a personal story that has nothing to do with the changing of the world, and that is excellent and a good response as any. So that is how we're going to end this Chronicle, hopefully. Questions? Question. The question is that the lineage used for Masquerade when we launched this Chronicle was excellent. Is something like that potentially going to be used for the next Chronicle in the New World of Darkness? Yes. The thing that I believe we need most for the New World of Darkness is to define our sandbox. We are provided a plethora of tools, but we need to define which ones we want to use. There's more bloodlines than you can shake a stick at. Which ones are we adopting into our Chronicle? Which ones are reserving for NPCs? Which ones haven't yet shown up or won't show up at all? And these are questions we are going to have to ask and answer. Now, as far as the lineage thing, I believe that's a fantastic idea. I believe that using these NPCs we are creating as part of the Project Quantum and allowing PCs to tie into them as either sires or childer to create the kind of lineages that we've seen explode in Requiem is phenomenal. While I have nothing but respect for the ones who built the De La Cruz or the Battalion or Chris Williams' Infinite Maquette line of awesome, a motivated player shouldn't be necessary to do things that we can provide you the tool sets to do yourself. And so I think it's a phenomenal idea to provide you those tool sets in a conscious manner. Not simply populate the world with NPCs, but involve those NPCs with these stories being told by the PCs. And so yes, I'm very much in favor of that. However, the exact decision as to how that idea will take form is something that the developer for Requiem will be tasked with nailing down. And mind you, it's not like he's going to have or she's going to have carte blanche to just build whatever world they see fit. I'm very consensus driven. Just because I think it's a good idea doesn't mean it is. I mean, it probably is, but it might not be. And just because the U.S. National Storyteller loves the idea doesn't mean that it will fly in the other affiliates. What works for the GIR, or for Australia, or Ireland, or Belgium, or Brazil, might not work for Canada. And so we need to be very cognizant of that when we build these worlds, that we're building them by consensus. And more than defining exactly how things are, we are providing tools to the affiliate national storytellers to construct their affiliate in a manner keeping with their culture, while staying within certain guidelines passed down by Global. I mean, honestly, at the end of the day, we are not the makers of the world. We're the administrators of the makers of the world. Much less glamorous. But I strongly want to empower the national storytellers, and anyone hired for the development team will be tasked with strongly empowering the national storytellers and their assistants to do a lot of the work themselves. Because I think that it results in a much richer national game, which in turn, because they're going to want to pass it down to regional, a richer regional game. And when regional passes it down to the domain level, a richer game in your domain. And that's what we're all here for. Awesome games. Question. The question is, I'm paraphrasing, but how will custom items be treated in the next Chronicle? And are we willing to hear any new material for how to deal with that? I'm not going to lie. Custom items are problematic. Some things, fetishes in Forsaken, head spun and lost, imbued items in Awakening are necessary and good things. They're integral to the thematic setting of those genres. Other things like custom bloodlines, custom disciplines, we run into problems with those. It's very easy for something to get through that damages the fabric of their Chronicle, that damages the investments the players have, because they see someone's custom item render their work or their XP irrelevant. As far as hearing new ideas on how to handle those, I'm open. Send them to me. If you have an idea of how to handle the integration of custom things, I want to hear it. But I will caution you that I think that we are given plenty of things within published material to play with. Enough so that I don't know if custom items, beyond the ones I mentioned where they're very integral, are necessary or beneficial. And even if we adopted them, it would be through an incredibly stringent review process. As someone who had custom items approved, that looking back, I'm not sure I wouldn't have approved them if I was the MST at the time. I understand how easy it is for even a well-meaning officer to make a mistake and click approve on something very damaging. And we need to take every possible precaution to make sure that doesn't happen. Question. And then you, and then you. Question. You know, I don't know what you have pending Global. But Carl Sagan is the man. And like some people have said some really nice things to me this convention. But I think, and some fairly unbelievable things. But I think that one might take the cake. Although,
Special friend rule. I got nothing pending. It's okay.
anyway, the question is, will existing custom items, especially those that have proved a benefit to the Chronicle, carry over when we transition? And the answer is maybe. To cite the same example you gave, Raven's Tongue, that is very integral to a specific thematic group, which I'm not sure will show up next Chronicle, as they are very PC-driven, and any attempt to do so might be seen as derivative. And so without that group, the custom item doesn't really fit. And there's other custom material which could make an excellent fit, but most of that was created to explore a specific theme, a theme that may not be present. So while it's possible, and obviously, like I said, final decisions are going to be between the developer hired and, of course, consensus with the national affiliate storytellers and their assistants, I would not expect it to be a very likely thing, even if they are really awesome. Question. Question is, this Chronicle, we've had two different continuities, one for the old World of Darkness, specifically the Masquerade venue, one for the new World of Darkness. Going forward in the next Chronicle, there's the possibility that these continuities might further fragment, that we might have multiple old World of Darkness continuities or multiple new World of Darkness continuities. That's possible, but I would say unlikely. The biggest difficulty we're going to run into is assuming, and granted, this is not definitive by any means, but if we had, say, the Cam Anarch genre and the Sabbat genre coexisting, there's an inherent PvP between those genres that might provide a basis for an argument that we need to split them into separate universes. Personally, I'm against it. I believe that if we fragment beyond the O-WAD and the new WAD, if we fragment any further, we're placing a burden on our players to know multiple competing histories. Two, I can see. In New WAD Reno, this happened. In O-WAD Reno, this happened. But if it's in New WAD Reno, Bob shot the sheriff. And in O-WAD Reno, Bob shot the sheriff, Bob married the sheriff, Bob was friends with the sheriff, Bob never knew the sheriff, and Bob is the sheriff. There's guaranteed to be confusion. I mean, you have your guru character going after trying to hunt down Bob because Bob shot the sheriff, only to find out that Bob is the sheriff, which doesn't make any sense to you because your Anarch character is Bob, and you know for a fact you shot the sheriff. So yeah, ideally we want to keep as few divergent continuities as possible. Though, I will admit, if maintaining that concept comes at the detriment to the game, if I think that the damage caused by clinging to that policy is greater than the benefit gained by simplifying our continuities, I'll split them into 100 different parts. The most important thing, especially for me, is the health of the Chronicle. And like I said, sometimes my ideas might not be awesome. I mean, it doesn't happen a lot, but theoretically, it could. There was another question. The 9 questions boil down fairly well as we have certain structures, this Chronicle. The MC to Generation / XP scale for OWAD, the MC to XP scale for New WAD. The staking rules change in New World of Darkness for Requiem. Will these structures carry on into the next Chronicle? And if you have concerns about them, what avenue do you have to voice those? And has there been any discussion on the matter? The answer to the last part is yes. But that's not the most helpful answer. I'm going to say that there are certain problems, both cured and caused, by some of the things that we have decided to move forward with. To take staking in Requiem, the change did eliminate staking by and large. And because of that, torpor / death is a more common outcome than staking. At the same time, staking severely diminished the chance of a PC to survive an ambush and led to a lot of people who staked as kind of the first step towards the murder. Not making value judgments as to the PvP game. But like I said, cures and causes. Obviously, we don't want people to not have an option other than PC death to resolve their disputes. But by the same token, we do not want to empower a certain character build to the point where it guarantees that resolution happens in your favor. Neither of those is beneficial. Striking the balance between them is difficult. As far as what forum that you have to address those concerns or to raise those, email me. Especially during this time of discussion, once we have the dev team hired and once they've been really cracking, they're going to be developing in a very open manner. Much like we're seeing in Masquerade, there will be lists you can subscribe to. You'll have vehicles provided that allows you to input directly into the discussion, whether it's by being part of that list, the proposal forms that David Bounds pioneered for Masquerade. Those tools will be at your disposal because we obviously want to know what you think. Surveys may not necessarily be the best vehicle for that. To quickly sidetrack, everyone saw I imagine most people saw the reset survey came out, and I imagine a lot of you, when looking at it, saw some problems with it. There were. Statistically, there were some things which could have been done differently, could have been done better. But as I said, I am very consensus driven. If I can't get the national storytellers to buy in, I can't expect them to go to their regional storytellers and have their RSTs buy in, which means the RSTs aren't going to the domain isn't going to the individual venue, and your VST isn't going to you, and that's not really all that great. So the survey was a survey by committee. On one hand, it means that everyone agrees to the same survey, and that's good, because they all buy into the result. But by the same token, it also means that the data we gather is not perfect. Now we can have an argument as to how perfect data from surveys can ever really be. And trust me, that's a horse that we've beaten to death, resurrected, and re-beaten to death numerous times. But we do want your input. And we will provide you the tools necessary to give us that input. As for what exactly we're carrying over, it's hard to say at this point. Membership class will continue to matter. I want to emphasize that. We're not going to make MC not be something you want to have. Now, will it remain in exactly the same form it currently is? I don't know. I imagine that whatever changes happen, we will be able to clearly show the reason behind them and get buy-in from the national storytellers, from the membership. And if we can't, then we'll revisit those very things. All right. Was there another question over here? Question, you, sir. The question is, given that regional doesn't want to begin running in one direction only to find out later that global and national are pitching in a different direction, what kind of timeline can regional expect? And by extension, the domain level officers and the members expect to see those tools, those ideas, those discussions, and the fruits of them. The answer to that is very soon. We've wrapped up a lot, or at least I can tell you this, we've wrapped up Lost, at least for the next 9 months. And that's being filtered down through the MST Lost, and will be hitting the regions and the Lost storytellers. Forsaken is nearing the end of its discussion with the affiliate national storytellers and their assistants, and we can be breaking that out. Requiem's already on the way, and we're currently distributing that, although some recent events in Requiem involving, plagues and whatnot have kind of pushed back that timetable. Geist is well out there. Masquerade is also being pushed out, although that office is currently in transition. And so it might take a little bit longer for the regional storytellers to get their hands on that tool set. Did I forget a venue? Awakening. And Awakening is being developed and in discussion. And I hope to soon have that resolved so that we can begin pushing those tools out to the regional level. Now that tells you, that's a lot of words, but doesn't exactly give you the timeline. I would like to say that if you haven't seen something hard and fast in the next month, that you should contact your national storyteller. Or that the venue assistant for your particular duties. And if they don't get back to you, then I want to know. But I have every faith that they will be able to provide those to you within that time frame. At least you should start seeing them. Question. I don't like you, Eric. Question. Currently, no. The question is there is a Masquerade New Chronicle development list. Is there a Requiem equivalent? Currently, there is not. The Masquerade list launched very early, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. Unlike Requiem, where we've had years of play experience to narrow down a lot of ideas, see a lot of things float and fail, Masquerade is still fairly new. And because of that, we're going to see a lot more discussion happening there because we're still addressing things that are long since settled in Requiem or any of the new WOD venues. Once we have that new Chronicle development team hired, you will see the Requiem equivalent. You'll see the Lost equivalent, the Awakening equivalent of those lists. And you'll start seeing those lists driving towards a direction, a conclusion. Whereas right now, the Masquerade list, while useful and very, very good for getting feedback and kicking around ideas, is not exactly driving towards any resolutions. And that's because for Masquerade, there's still a lot of ideas that we need to explore, a lot of things that need to be discussed. So yeah, but soon. Soon is the hope. All right, Eric, you had a question. Well, you only get one. Okay. Obviously, the question is, sorry, I keep forgetting. The question is, how long will the next Chronicle be? And are we going to auction off anything for that Chronicle prior to its start? The answer to the first part is, I would like to see a 5-year Chronicle, but I am not going to set that in stone until I have the buy-in of every affiliate national storyteller. Because once again, consensus. Once I have their buy-in, once we are all on that same page, then you'll see that announcement drop. Hopefully, with the announcement of what venues are being globally supported, and more information on the scale genres. But yeah, I would ballpark it at about 5 years. What was the second part of that question? Oh, yes. Are any items going to be auctioned off? Not at SWRE. However, and obviously we do not have an absolute answer on GM, but I imagine that in the later part of the year, we will have a large event. And at that large event, which puts us a little bit further than that 6 months out, but still far enough down the road where a lot of things will have been decided, I am going to bring with me some auction items for next Chronicle. And hopefully you will bring with you a great love for charity. Questions? Question.
Will there be longevity XP from this Chronicle?
The question is, will there be longevity XP from this Chronicle? That's actually the first time I've heard that suggested. I'm not exactly intrinsically opposed to it, but it would be a very hard thing to manage while still maintaining XP projections and not excluding newer members. So I'm going to say that my gut is no. But if that's something that is interesting to individuals, they want to explore that, I'm more than happy to bring that discussion up. One of the things that, and granted, this is not something I can promise will happen because, once again, consensus driven. One of the things I would like to add is a base Chronicle XP. The idea being is if the Chronicle's been going for 3 years and you just joined the CAM, you get a base amount of XP based on the longevity of the Chronicle. And everyone gets this.
Every time they make a new character?
Every time they make a new character. The reason being is that one of the big hurdles is joining a Chronicle that's already been running for years and discovering that you are so very far behind and that your character, while interesting, is unable to fully explore its own concept based on the mechanics of the world it plays in and the XP accrued by others. And while gaining membership class and being very active can compensate for that to a degree, it almost seems like we're being harshly punitive to the new member. So we create a base amount of Chronicle XP. And we couple that with longevity XP and the MSA. And we create a situation where it's possible that after playing your character for a few years and going out like an absolute rock star, embodying all the highest standards of what it is to be a member of this club, your next character can walk in with a significant fraction of your XP, potentially up to 80%, as our way of reducing the death penalty. That said, that idea, while discussed, and actually it emerged from a conversation I had with Mario Medina, is not something that the affiliate national storytellers have given thumbs up for. And it's something that wouldn't be introduced until next Chronicle, and then only if I can get consensus. But if you like the sound of it, when the U.S. National Storyteller election ends, you might want to send an email suggesting that it's an awesome idea. All right. We're about 15 minutes out, so we're going to start hitting these a little bit rapid fire, a little bit less segue, but I do want to give you the information you came here to get. If you have a question, raise your hand. Question. Question was, the Brood as PCs was introduced fairly late in this Chronicle. Will that avenue exist at the start of next Chronicle for PCs to explore that sort of relationship? And the answer is that I don't know. A lot of it will depend on the Requiem development team. A lot of it will depend on what we can get buy-in for from the affiliates. But I will say this, and we are going to segue because I didn't see 100 hands shoot up when I asked for hands. So hear me monologue a little bit. Conflict, protagonist versus antagonist, is the fundamental of storytelling. Now, whether the protagonist is a hero or anti-hero, whether the antagonist is the environment, the protagonist himself, another character, is irrelevant. At the root, protagonist versus antagonist. Now, as fun as it is to go head-to-head with NPCs, and as awesome as it can be to explore through role play internal conflict, there's nothing that gets the juices flowing that knowing that a PC is on the other end. Whether it's a social gambit where you're competing, a political maneuver, or straight up physical PvP, there's nothing that motivates, that excites, like knowing that there's another player at the other end. And as I referenced earlier, we have phenomenal power to impact the excitement, the enjoyment of the other players. So if I can interpret, your question is, will there be PC antagonists? I certainly hope so. And will we use existing structures in the genres to allow those PC antagonists to fully flesh out their concepts? Of course. Now, will it be the Brood in specific? I don't know. In Requiem, it might be the Morbus. But the important thing is to know that that avenue, whatever form it takes, will be there and encouraged. We want conflict. We love conflict. Because that's where stories come from, and that's what we're here for. And it's not about winning or losing. I've had more fun getting murdered in a kill box than I ever had being part of the winning side. It's about exploring your story when it runs violently up against another's, socially, politically, physically. Depends on your character, your concept. But watching your story interact with others, watching their stories impact yours, change it, evolve it, watching your own story impact theirs, watching the Chronicle evolve as a backdrop to these stories, to these conflicts. That's what gets you up in the morning. That's why you buy a plane ticket, fly to a con, get 3 hours of sleep for 3 nights, and go home sick and love it. And that's what I want to see encouraged. No matter what avenue it takes, no matter how we wind up doing it, we'll do it as a consensus. Take that into your own storytelling. If you find that your character doesn't have a powerful hate, talk to players. Make a powerful hate. Question.
Are we going to get any more global support for the most popular venue, the drinking venue?
The question is absurd. The question is, will we get any global support for the drinking venue? And obviously, this is something that I'd want to explore in consensus with other storytellers. But there is a tradition that I'm willing to support at global. Officially on the record, the MST will support this. If you engage in this conflict-driven storytelling, and you come and your character has their story end because of it, and it's epic and awesome, whoever's responsible owes you a drink. And if they don't buy you a drink, then that's when you contact me and we'll see about getting you your drink. Question.
If it's epic and awesome, shouldn't you be buying them a drink? You can buy each other drinks. Don't rule against that.
The question is if it's epic and awesome, shouldn't you be buying them a drink? And the answer is, I don't think the bar cares who's paying. So maybe they get the first round, and Neil gets all the other rounds. But the important thing, the idea behind the humor of the question is, no matter how opposed your characters are, no matter how violently excellent that hate is, at the end of the day, we're all people. We all like to have fun. We enjoy seeing our stories come to fruition. Those of us who wear pants, put our pants on one leg at a time and let you do that crazy out of the bed, hop, leap, double leg thing. And, well, I'm not 20 anymore, so. And no matter how our in-character conflicts resolve, it's no excuse to forget that we're awesome. It's no excuse to forget that this is fun. We talk a lot about don't take things out of character, or don't take out of character things in character. And that's something I want to see. Question. Okay.
Master storyteller or master play.
Fair enough. The question is with the reset being discussed, is there any discussion about opening up more of the source material? And I'm imagining by and large that's for the Masquerade. Oh, for Requiem? Okay. The answer is that in the new WAD, we have a sandbox. And the global staff will work with the national staff to define the limits of that sandbox. But I don't want things to be global approval, unless they have to be. The reason being is that if they're global approval, you're going to app for them, and I'm going to have to go in the database, and I'm going to have to click a button, and that's really hard. I'm, of course, joking. I want the national storytellers to be the most powerful influences on the affiliates' development, on the development of their Chronicle and the national play. And I do that by empowering them with these approvals. And they do it by empowering the regional staff and down the line so that we distribute and push down as much as we possibly can. Now, it doesn't quite answer your question. And I imagine, and Grant, this will come through when we hire the new developers and what we achieve consensus on, but I actually think that we have so much in the new world of darkness available to us with like 90% of the Requiem source sanctioned that we've made our sandbox so big we've lost our themes. We've lost that sort of sleek and narrow scope that allows us to push forward quickly. Now, whether that's good or bad, that's up to the individual. But the matter will be under discussion. It's something that we're going to talk about, and where we find consensus is where we go. One last question. Not from Dave Mercer. The question is with the GRP and your ability to kind of be that fly on the wall and watch the discussions as they happen, is there going to be something like that for the reset? And the answer is yes, but more. The GRP was restricted in the way it was because it was inevitable that someone would see their item come up for review and feel the need to defend what they had approved. That's not bad. We would all do that if it was our item under fire. It's different for the new Chronicle. I don't want you to be a fly on the wall watching. I want you to be an active participant. Now, granted, we're going to have to structure that because simply letting everyone in the club post their opinion is not the most constructive way to drive towards a resolution.
Like a million voices cry out at once.
However, simply allowing you to observe without giving you an avenue by which to input ideas is a disservice to the awesome ideas that you probably have. So we're going to strike a balance. And we're going to provide you the tool sets you need to help that open development while also maintaining the kind of transparency necessary to not only show you what we're doing, but why. And with that, we are going to begin the charity auction, which is what I imagine most of you are here for.
Thank you, Jesse.
Thank you very much.
Really good job. 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 Really